We are back with another episode of the basketball show. Alabama falls to Duke in the Elite Eight, 85-65. Dunaway is in Newark. Just watched the game in person. Thoughts?
Just came out of the locker room first, and that's always the hardest part, to be honest with you. I've done this a long time, losing locker rooms when it's the final, it's the end of the playoffs, end of the season. It just happens so quickly. Just think about it. 48 hours ago, Alabama set an NCAA tournament record hitting threes, struggled to throw in the ocean tonight because of Duke's extended defense, their length. And for guys like Mark Sears and Grant Nelson and those guys, a lot of emotions in the locker room. You'll see it when we send it out a little bit later on, but Grant Nelson really in tears because it just ends so quickly. So, that's my first thought is that when it's over, and it just happens. From the greatest of highs, winning a Sweet 16 game to the Elite Eight, or last year the Elite Eight, you at least had the whole week to build up to the Final Four, but then it just ends. And and so tonight it ends, short of where they wanted it to end. This team was talking about another Final Four and a national championship all season long, and they end up as one of the top 8 teams in the country. That's where they were in Ken Palm all year. That's where they were in the rankings for most of the year, and that's where it ends up. They were the 2 seed, losing to the 1 seed, and I guess technically that was what was supposed to happen. And but it doesn't make it any less painful for the players. So that's where I'll start. And then I'll go to the actual game itself, where Duke is really good. And where you start with Duke, and I texted, I believe, this to you and Forster during the game, the best 2 defenses I saw all year in all of college basketball. And I don't know what Ken Pom says, but I think the list is Duke and Auburn. And then I don't know. I mean, I know Tennessee has a reputation. I know Texas A&M has a reputation, and there are other good defensive teams in the country. But I think the 2 best defensive teams in the country are Duke and Auburn, at least in my eyes. And Duke proved that tonight. They're a tall, long team, and those type teams like Florida cause Alabama a lot of problems on the perimeter, and they just don't feel as comfortable shooting threes as they do when they're playing less NBA like players. So those are my 2 initial thoughts on the game. That's being brought to you, this post game, by the way, by our friends at Culver's. We appreciate them so much. I'm bringing us the post game coverage throughout the NCAA tournament. Welcome to Delicious is their catch slogan. That starts with never frozen meat. The hand patty burgers there. I like mine with a couple of patties on mine, and on my butter burger, you butter the buns, all the great sides that go with it, or toppings that go with it. And then you, of course, got the custards and all that. Tattersall is one of the great locations I go to. I also go to Highway 150 near the Met. But wherever you see a Culver's, go by and see our friends at Culver's. And also the women's basketball tournament that's in Birmingham right now. They'll continue play tomorrow, and you can still get tickets at ncaa.com/WBB tickets. It's sending a couple of teams to the Final Four. We're excited about that. ncaa.com/WBB tickets. Taylor, give me your thoughts. You watched it. You watched it from Atlanta. Did you get ready for the Auburn game? What did you think of the contest tonight?
I mean, I agree with what you said. I think defensively, Duke is a better defensive team. And I think that was the difference. Alabama wasn't making shots that they needed to make to stay in the game. And I mean, Duke's a good team. I think there were a lot of questions floating around because of the strength of the ACC this season. People didn't really know how they would compete in the postseason because the ACC wasn't as strong as the SEC. So I think there were some questions revolving around how they would look when they started playing teams outside of the teams that they played. And I know they played out of conference teams prior to conference play starting, but they were so dominant and they were getting talked about so much during conference play. And that was always the rebuttal was, well, the ACC sucks. So, what would their record be in the SEC? But I mean, they're very good defensively, and they held Alabama to 65 points. Alabama has a very good offense, and that was 1 point higher than their season low, which was 64. And that's what came during the Ole Miss game in
Yeah.
February, I believe. So, I mean, they're a good defensive team. They're a good team.
Yeah. And I would say there were parts of this game that felt a little bit like that Ole Miss game because Alabama, struggled to get 3-point shots off in that game. But this was one of those where, uh, first of all, I'll tell you, a lot of side to side on the offense. Duke just forced them the inability to get downhill, and when you got Malulak, their big 7-2 guy, is a rim protector. Even when you got past somebody and got to the rim, you still had big rim protectors there. So I thought, they presented a different problem than some teams have that have beaten Alabama this year. I came into this game. You guys know this. I told you via text. I didn't like Alabama's chances. The video I sent out pregame, I listed all the reasons why Duke was such a heavy favorite in this game. But then I looked back and I was like, God, Auburn lost to them, but they were on Cameron indoors, so Auburn's good. But they had a chance. Then I went back. I was like, they lost to Kentucky back in November. They lost to Kansas, and they lost to Clemson. I said, so they're beatable, but they've only lost those 3 games. And so, even though I didn't think there was a chance, there was still a little bit of me that thought, okay, Alabama could get into a flow. But early on, that sort of 6 to 10, 11, 6 to 12, 6 to 13 deficit, Alabama never led. And every time they cut it to 6, and they cut it to 6 several times, I think 19 minutes, 15:38. There were different times that they would cut it to 6. And then I think was it the Auburn game in Tuscaloosa where Alabama would cut it, they'd get it close, and then Auburn would like score 2 or 3 quick buckets. It's exactly the
Yeah.
way this game was tonight, where Alabama, okay, man, they bust their butts to get it back to within 6. And then all of a sudden it would be like Duke would hit 6 of 8 field goals and Alabama would go on a 2-minute drought. So it was one of those where, it just, the better team won the basketball game, and they prevented Alabama from doing what they were good at doing. And, Mark Sears didn't have a good night. Turned the ball over a little bit, didn't make a lot of shots. Alabama hit 25% of their threes. They were hesitant to even take their threes, especially early in the game. They were almost, I don't want to use the word scared, but they were hesitant. They just, BYU, it was just so easy to throw them up and make them. It was almost like they were afraid of getting them blocked because of the big length of Duke. I don't know what it was, but they just seemed hesitant to do what they normally do. Let's get some of the comments from you guys. Taylor's going to walk us through some of your comments. This is our post-game show, the basketball show from Newark, where Duke has beat Alabama 85-65. As you're pulling those up, I'll tell you our coverage brought to you by our friends at Culver's. Welcome to Delicious. I thought Knipple was the best player on the floor tonight for Duke. His defense was good. He scored 21. He had 5 assists, 5 rebounds. Flagg, he had 10 at the half. He didn't score again until like 7 minutes to go in the game. So you tell me that you got Cooper Flagg who didn't score for 13 minutes in the second half, and then Alabama couldn't take advantage of that. I mean, if you'd have told me there was any point in the game that Cooper Flagg wouldn't score for 13 minutes, you think, oh, there's an opportunity for Alabama. But then in that time, it never got below 6, and it hovered around 10, 11, 13 points, even when he wasn't scoring. And that was because Knipple was so good, and Proctor was so good, and Malawak was so good. So they got 4 legit first-round draft picks, and it showed tonight. Those guys were dominant.
Yeah, that's something I'll get to the comments in a second, but something that I noticed during halftime was Grant Nelson at the half was Alabama's leading scorer with 6 points.
Yeah. He and Aiden Sherrill both had 6.
Or
Nobody was
yeah,
lighting it up. Yeah.
but that stood out to me because you're typically going to see a couple guys in double digits. Jay Bake says, was a great season, heck of a run by the fellas. Robert said, well, didn't want to see it end like that. Bama JT2 said, love this team, loved Mark Sears and Crimson, gonna miss these guys, thankful for what they've accomplished and the fun it's been. Dave said they did struggle to hit shots tonight. And NH3425 said, man, Mark Sears just wasn't hitting shots. He closed up shot. I don't want to be. he's making a joke there, but he followed up with Duke is just dang good, which I don't think that anyone would disagree with. Um, got to execute the game plan. Duke executed theirs. And I agree with this comment. Laura said Bama's better than how they played, tough loss. And I think that that's probably one of the things that for Alabama fans and probably for a lot of the players as well. I mean, whenever a season ends, no matter how it ends, it's going to be emotional because you've spent, months and for some of these guys, years dedicating all of your time to the program, your teammates, your coaches and stuff. But I do think that it probably hurts a little bit more when you walk off the court knowing that, that wasn't your best performance.
Oh, 100%. Like you would, if you're going to lose, like last year when you lost to UConn in the Final Four, I thought, Alabama played UConn pretty dang good. They never looked outclassed by a really great UConn team in that contest. And UConn pulled away at the end, but Alabama was still fighting late in that game to have a shot to go to the national championship game. So you left that one going, man, you played your butt off against a team that went on to win the national championship. But you're right. In this one, Alabama didn't shoot the ball well. They missed a lot of shots, not just 3-point shots. I think Amori missed 2 dunks, and I think Grant and several of them missed some, you know, right at the rim shots. But that happens when you got some big guys around the rim. We talk about it all the time throughout the season. It happened a couple of times, and sometimes the fact of the matter is you're missing some shots because it's contested. And sometimes it's contested by really big men that keep you from making them. But when Cliff misses 2 dunks and some of the threes and some of the twos are rattling in and out, just not your night. So I sort of agree with what you guys are saying there, that you sort of wish it would have been more of a back and forth game where you felt like you were in the fight, but there was a hump and they just never, ever, ever got over that hump all night long.
Rob says I'll take an Elite Eight any year over the Anthony Grant years.
Yeah,
Which
I want to talk about that real quickly, and I know what we're saying. It's the Elite Eight. It's only the third time in program history, and I agree with that 100%. But when you get used to going to the Elite Eight, and now they've gone back to back years, and I know everyone says I'll take that every year. I don't think anybody really means it because an Elite Eight's a great year. It's a great year, but it's if you're good enough to make the Elite Eight, then you're 40 minutes away from being in Final Four. So yeah, I understand what everyone's saying, and you go to North Carolina, you look up in their rafters, and they've got like 25 Final Four trips, right? And Alabama's been once, and we were all excited about that. Now you've gone to 3 Elite Eights, but 2 in back-to-back years. Elite Eight's a great year. I don't disagree with that, but I don't think you'll ever be satisfied with just going to the Elite Eight ever again, because you've done that now. It's like orbiting Earth, right? Once you did that, then you wanted to land on the moon. Well, once you did that, okay, we've landed on the moon a few times. What's next? And Alabama's been to the Final Four now. So what's next? What's next? What's next?
a national championship, I guess.
That's right. Get used to going to the Final Four. I mean, getting to the Final Four is something. Now you've won your regional, so that is something. Here Alabama won the 3 games they were supposed to win, and then they lost the one they were supposed to lose. They were the 2 seed playing the 1. They were the underdogs. They beat BYU. They beat the others that they were supposed to win, and so they met expectation. The Elite Eight, that was their expectation this year, and they didn't exceed them. They met them. I gotta catch a ride back to the hotel. So let's do 2 more comments and put a wraps on this one, because post game went a little long. I'm gonna let you get to sending some of that post game out. Everyone wants to hear from the guys in the locker room, and we'll wrap this up here. Give me 2 more comments, and we'll put a wrap on our Culver's post game show here.
J-Bay can't get out rebounded like that and expect to win.
Yeah.
The rebounding differential was 11 at the end of the game.
Yeah, and I think Alabama only had 2 offensive rebounds, and that's key, right? Not getting, of all the misses, not getting second opportunities. 2 offensive rebounds. Great point by him. It's a great point.
And then, okay, we'll end on this. This is a little bit of a I guess, a positive, a high note.
Yeah.
Derek said, I don't care if Sears was 4'9", what he's done at Alabama and for Alabama basketball makes him a giant.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Mark Sears, when the pain of this one's over with and him having a, not his ideal ending or even his ideal game in his last game, he is the most decorated Alabama men's basketball player of all time just by what he did in March. Um, he was on a number one overall seed team. He was the captain of a team that went to the Final Four, and he was a big part of this team, the captain of a team that went back to the Elite Eight back-to-back years. That's never been done for Alabama basketball. He's won more NCAA tournament games than anybody else. Mark Sears is an Alabama legend, even though it ended this way tonight. He is a legend in Alabama. I agree with that 100%. And just because it didn't end great here tonight doesn't damage his legacy at all. He is forever March Sears to me.
All right. Well, Dunaway needs to catch a ride to his hotel, and I'm going to start sending out
Okay.
sound from the players from the locker room. So
Okay.
if you are interested in hearing what they have to say, at Next Round Live on all of the social media platforms is where you'll be able to find that. It'll be out on Twitter the fastest. And we will be back tomorrow after the Auburn game.
That's right.
Dunaway, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I'm catching a flight and hope to be in Birmingham right before the tip of the Auburn game. We'll be live after that. Thanks to our great friends at Culver's for that. And I just will end by saying that it was a fantastic season covering Alabama and Auburn, obviously, but that season's not over with yet. But Alabama's season is over with. And I know you enjoyed your time when we covered the Tide as well, just like I've enjoyed my time covering the Tigers. I will miss this group of guys, and that's the hard part. You don't know who will be back next year. There may be a couple of names that you think will be back that'll go somewhere else. Obviously, a lot of them are going on to their next chapter of their lives. So this team will never, ever, ever be together again. And that is sort of sad, but we'll always have some great memories from the last 2 years and from this season. And it just was a fun ride, fun ride. And I've been on the road now. This is 12 straight days with this group of players. And, they've seen me a lot. And sometimes I was the only media guy around them. And they are the nicest group of guys. And, hopefully we have a more happier, joyful post-game show tomorrow night. And hopefully it'll be a little later because there'll be a celebration on the court first before we do our post-game show. But it's been fun covering Bama, and we'll see what's next for Auburn tomorrow night. But thank you to Culver's. Thank you to NCAA.com/WBB tickets. Go support that at Legacy Arena. And Taylor, as always, you and Forrester do a fantastic job with all our basketball
Shout out
coverage.
Scott Forrester.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you guys, everyone. And I will see you back in Birmingham.
See y'all tomorrow.